What's up, you guys? Welcome to The Imagination. I'm your host, Emma, and today I'm absolutely honored to have back on the show once again MK Ultra, satanic ritual abuse, and organized abuse survivor, overcomer, and whistleblower, targeted individual, writer and author of the book Our Life Beyond MK Ultra, and a hero who has spent years blinding the darkness with her light, Elisa E. A little bit about Elisa if you've missed her other episodes or if you're new here, and a sneak peek of what you can expect to hear about on today's show. Born into a multi-generational incest-based military family, Elisa was ensnared from infancy in the shadowy web of MK Ultra trauma-based mind control programs. Through her father's military connections, tied to branches like the Office of Naval Intelligence, she was subjected to extreme, systematic abuse starting as a small child. Her programming fractured her psyche into dissociative identities, conditioning her to serve as both a sex slave and a highly trained assassin deployed on covert kill missions for high-level handlers and networks advancing hidden agendas. The horrors she endured were not confined to isolated incidents, but spanned decades. Ritualistic torture on military bases, repeated sexual and physical violations, forced witnessing of atrocities, and reinforcement through holidays, birthdays, and ongoing on-task operations. Even into adulthood, the control persisted through remote technologies, directed energy weapons, frequency-based targeting, and what she describes as evolving electronic mind control. What began in the 1960s with classic MK Ultra methods such as drugs, hypnosis, electroshock, and occult elements slid into more advanced eras. Remote alter switching in the 1970s and 80s, cloning technologies, brain-computer interfaces or BCIs, AI-driven algorithms, and biohacking via DNA signatures. Elisa's testimony bridges these eras, exposing how MK Ultra never truly ended, but was simply rebranded, upgraded, and scaled, now affecting targeted individuals globally through corporatized military intelligence operations. Yet Elisa's story is not merely one of suffering, it is a profound triumph. Through conscious, self-directed, deep deprogramming, she reclaimed her fragmented self, confronted buried memories, and dismantled the amnestic barriers and entities that once controlled her. Today, Elisa stands as a powerful voice for the voiceless. Her book, Our Life Beyond MK Ultra, serves as both a raw testimony and an educational lifeline. Written from the perspective of her recovered self, it details the mechanics of DID creation, deprogramming, MK Ultra's history and evolution, cloning, remote technologies, spiritual dimensions, and so much more, offering survivors, advocates, and truth seekers a roadmap through the darkness. Her blog further amplifies resources on deprogramming, transhumanism, directed energy weapons, and societal awakening. On Elisa's last couple episodes, we dove deep into her testimony, outlining things like her family's history and ties to MK Ultra, her experiences in the programs, and the evolution of MK Ultra across generations, as well as during the lifespan of a victim and survivor, going from being a lab experiment to a targeted individual. Today, Elisa will be expanding on this conversation of EMK Ultra, discussing more about things like nanotech, AI, digital superintelligence, and so much more. You definitely don't want to miss a moment of this episode, you guys. Elisa embodies the warrior spirit, a walking miracle who risked everything, her family, her safety, her reputation, to expose these hidden horrors, to save children, and to awaken humanity. She speaks not from bitterness, but from hard-won wisdom, emphasizing that perpetrators are often victims too, that healing requires confronting trauma's root causes, and that true power lies in cultivating a strong inner life connected to divine light. In an age of escalating targeting and transhumanist agendas, Elisa reminds us, there is no retirement from these systems in their eyes, but there is freedom in reclaiming one's soul. Fear can be transcended, protection is real, and humanity's magnificent destiny is still unfolding. Elisa stands as a beacon of hope, showing us all that no darkness, no matter how engineered, how ancient, or how vast, can extinguish the eternal light within. In her courage, we see our own potential to heal, to speak truth, to protect the innocent, and to co-create a world where love, sovereignty, and divine connection prevail. The path she has walked on is one of profound redemption, and through her voice, she invites every one of us to rise, to reclaim our power, and to step boldly into the magnificent future that awaits. The light she carries is contagious, so let it ignite yours. So you guys, without further ado, please help me in welcoming back today's guest of honor, voice for the voiceless, survivor and anti-child abuse advocate, warrioress, podcaster and content creator, brilliant writer and educator, absolute walking miracle, and a pioneer in the survivor movement whose tireless work and advocacy has set countless other survivors and victims free, the one, the only, Elisa E. Elisa, it is an honor to have you back on today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, it is an honor to be here. And my goodness, what a wonderful introduction. That was beautiful. Thank you. Very kind of you.
You're so welcome. It's an honor to get to share this space with you. And your name comes up so much in survivor testimonies as an inspiration to them and a person that helped them along their journey. So I'm really grateful that you're still doing the work that you're doing and you're still speaking out. And I just hope you know how many lives you've touched and of people that you probably have no idea around the world that have read your book or heard a podcast you did, and the just enormous impact that you have made. So I'm grateful to you, to all your work, and I'm excited to dive into some new topics today that we've only touched on and brushed on in the other episodes that you did. But first, I just wanted to catch up with you. It's been a little bit since you've been on, so I just wanted to ask, I'm sure everybody's wondering how you're doing and how life is.
I'm doing okay. I've been stationary since in Taos, where I want to be, since January, which is different for me. I do have a small house sitting business, pet sitting business. So I go from here to those places locally. I'm semi-retired that way. And it's nice to be stationary. I made a kind of a commitment this year to do whatever I can within reason and without compromising who I am to be stationary. Because I don't know the people that saw the interview with you and the two other survivors after 50 Ritual Voices. I was roaming then, and I've been in and out of my car since, a very long time, even before deprogramming. So it's nice. It's nice to have this little place. I'm in a yurt 8,000 feet up in the mountains and the trees, and it's very healing environment. Very nice people who run it. I've got one neighbor that's been here 3 years. He's a super nice guy, and I'm hoping to make this home ongoing. Right now it's month to month and just trying to figure out where it's all going to come from. So that's where I'm at. I do have, as we get into the material, I'm still targeted. And I'll get into some specifics of something that happened a few months ago that I think is really important for people to understand as far as protection and surviving. So, and I just want to show the cover of the book, and it is Then and Now, Our Life Beyond MK Ultra, Then and Now. And this is just for those that don't know my work. In early deprogramming, I wrote 2 books. And I wanted to do that while I was still under. I was still losing time. I was working jobs, coming 2 hours after I, got to work. I was an amazing employee. Body memories were coming up. So I was still dealing a lot with alters and people coming in, trying to become potential handlers, sending men in mostly, which I didn't take to. But I learned a lot. And so during that time, I wrote the 2 books, which are in this book. Both of them are in here. I self-published those. This was published by logosophiabooks.com. You can find this book in other places. I just want to do this up front. But I do ask for people to support this small publishing house in North Carolina who did have some issues after they published my book. They're very small business and they need the straight income through them rather than going to Amazon or Barnes and Noble or, what have you. So I appreciate if you would go to them directly if you're interested in the book. But both of the first books are in here with numerous updates, a whole new perspective since, I'll say it, as CV came online, some information regarding that of what I understand that to be, as well as all 36 color collages, which I wasn't able to put in the first two books. We did them in color this time, which really makes a huge difference. So that's the preface to my work. There are, you're posting my WordPress site. There's a lot of free information. Some of the videos that are on there have been taken down. They've been censored, but there are still some on there. And you can also go there to find the color collages if you just want to look at those. You can go through all 36 of them. They're posted there. So this is Steve and Chris Creamy, who have this site, and they're awesome people. And they also they live in Asheville. They just went through what happened in Asheville a couple years ago. So, and I understand the weather is hitting actually today, and tomorrow is hitting again in North Carolina. So there's a real hard push against them and many people that I know that are there. And that's Steve's book, Hermes Runs the Game. He's a Gnostic, and it's a very interesting. I bought it and read it because it helped me to understand some of the beings that I've encountered over the years. So, so yeah, any support you can throw their way. Great people.
That's awesome. And I'm going to have your link in the show notes, of course, for here. And there is a lot of great information, both on her book, on other resources, on her blog. So I definitely encourage you guys to go on her website and just go browse through and share with people. It's a really great way you guys can help support Elisa too.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. So here we are. So kind of just to give your viewers an idea of what you and I have talked about doing today is we're going to, I'm going to use a phrase that my friend Alana Freeland uses, which is historical symptomology, meaning it's super important for people to understand the history, where we're at and where we're headed with mind control. You know, to say, okay, well, they're not doing it the way they used to in 1950 and 1960 really isn't poignant to say that, because it leads to the possibilities and what is actually taking place now. Without that history, it's really difficult for people to grasp what's taking place. It's easy for them to say, oh, you know, sounds like a movie, you know, a movie story. But what I really want to stress today is that from personal experience as well as research, and from the personal experience of others, some of which I will share as far as mine as we go through this. This isn't tomorrow. This isn't 10 years from now. This has been enacted for decades. Make no mistake. MK Ultra really started in 1953. We are now 80 years ahead of the beginnings of the old school techniques. 80 years technologically ahead. We are dealing, all of us, with AI, whether you're aware of it or not. Every time you use your iPhone, every time you use your computer, your iPad. And that's what I want to get into. And I will give specifics so that it's not just theory. We're going to back it up with some research, and then I'm going to present some personal information. My targeting, aside from making it very difficult to use my computer at times, my personal direct targeting into my brain and my body is intermittent, but it can be very severe. And a few months ago, the end fall of last year, early winter, I had a very profound kill shot come in. And the reason I want to talk about that at some point is because it was stopped. And I believe well, I'll put it this way. I have an ongoing involuntary personal relationship to AI. This is common for targeted individuals. And because of my extraction of my soul forces from what was done to me over my life, taking that back and becoming what I call the watcher now for some years now, I have an interaction with AI. It's not just a victimization. I'm not promoting interacting with AI. I want to be very clear. Steer clear. Do not use chatbots. Do not do any of these things. If, for example, on your email, it's coming in, if you've got Google or Gmail, there are ways to go in and turn it off. You need to look into these things, and there will be videos online that people will, share with you of how to do this. Voluntarily interacting out of curiosity with AI is not a good idea. Okay, it can make you even more subject to targeting, as well as it's learning from you. We're not going to stop this. This is not going away. It's going to progress. There's nothing we can do to stop it. What we need to be focusing on is maintaining our sovereignty as we go forward in this. This is not only a spiritual process to do that, you need to educate yourself. So you need to dive deep into the science, and you need to build that inner life in a way you never have before. And the reason I say this is this isn't just about officially targeted people or the old school MK Ultras anymore. With CV a handful of years ago, you know what I'm talking about, that was when it went global. In my programming in MK Ultra, there was something called end time programming. And even though we look at that, it sounds like a biblical phrase and that we're in the apocalypse and Revelation. That part's going to go on for thousands of years. We're not in the heart of this now. What CV brought forward was the next level. That's what end time programming through MK Ultra, that's what it actually means, is the next level. What is the next level? It goes global. We are now in global mind control through AI. Categorizing AI, everything you hear revealed in public by designers and developers of AI, those that are coming forward with warnings and so forth, that's all regarding AGI, artificial general intelligence. That is what you're hearing about in the public. What I'm speaking to is ASI, artificial super intelligence. This is sentient, autonomous, and making its own decisions. It's running itself. You can see examples of AGI even with corporations. I had an episode two years ago with REI. And what I learned through that episode, having ordered something online and the way the charging came through, and I call it customer service, what I learned there was that they have absolutely no control over their systems anymore. That was told to me by the IT guys. Meaning when I requested some action be taken regarding my credit card, debit card, and account, they can't do it. They don't even know how. Now that's just a simple AGI, okay? We're not talking about weaponized ASI, which is what targeted individuals, MK Ultras, and so forth are dealing with. The unfortunate part of this story is that you are all now dealing with it. If you have an iPhone, if you have a laptop, if you have an iPad, a BlackBerry, you are now interacting with AI, whether you're aware of it or not. Weaponized AI, the ASI, is running itself. So when I encounter it, over the course of a month or so, when something occurs with me, I'm very aware there's no person there. There's no person making a decision, deciding to do whatever with me. AI, ASI, weaponized AI, is deciding what to do based on its own variables, and God only knows what those are. Part of it is learning still, but make no mistake, this thing is autonomous in the weaponized. So I'm gonna kind of backtrack a little bit and try to give a little history to this through MK Ultra. MK Ultra actually began in the early 1950s. We all know it was a CIA mind control program. It was claimed to have been halted in 1973, but as you mentioned, Emma, standard operating procedure is simply to move shop and rename it. I know that it moved into the corporation SAIC, which is very interesting when you get into studying esoteric Christianity. There's a term, Pharisaic, meaning referring to the Pharisees, right? That Jesus Christ confronted. The end of that word, Pharisaic, is SAIC. That corporation took over MK Ultra at some point. I can't say that they're still the ones running it, but they were the ones, and they were involved with me. I found some information online. The old MK Ultra, I call it old school, use chemicals, sensory deprivation, isolation, verbal and sexual abuse, torture, drowning, electroshock, and beatings. It was a science. They used drugs, they used machines, they took you to facilities. And then the SRA aspect of, rituals and abuse was also utilized. And there was a purpose for that. It wasn't just, the rituals weren't just to traumatize. They did that brilliantly, but it literally is calling in beings and entities that become attached to the person and work even as handlers and controllers and programmers. I can vouch for this personally. I have extensive interaction with the beings themselves. There's more on that in my book. I found my connections through spiritual science or anthroposophy, thanks to Rudolf Steiner. And there were things that I didn't know about that until deep programming at all. And I was relaying information as someone who was confused and didn't understand, but I was very clear about what was happening to me. And due to that, Alana Freeland, who edited my first books, she put me in touch with spiritual science because she saw some connections in what I was relaying. So the reason I bring that in is these beings are real. They're individual beings that have been around for thousands of years. They have personalities, they have abilities and capabilities, and those vary from the different types of beings, and they're numerous. There are beings that are kind of at the top of this, and the reason I'm bringing this in now is that I will state emphatically, without any humility in it, that these beings are what AI is. Technology itself doesn't need to be evil. There is something called moral technology. And Steiner refers to this information, as does another anthroposophist named Paul Emberson, who was killed, by the way. I believe it was in 2010 because of the work he was doing regarding moral technology. But my point is that what we're dealing with, we can use it as we're using it now for a good purpose to get the word out. In that regard, information can go out in a way in such a broad area that it never could before. However, it's really important to understand every time you go to utilize a piece of technology that there is a very malevolent force behind it. And understanding that is in huge part of your protection. If you do not understand what we're dealing with, if you do not understand where we are technologically, you become a subject. And good intentions are not enough, not anymore. I don't know that they ever were, but you can be a very good person doing very good things and inadvertently working for the wrong side or promoting the wrong side. So this is going to be a really fine line now. This is it. This is where we're at. It's not down the road. We all need to pay attention. And it's been my contention that this year there's going to be some things that are going to happen. And if you haven't prepared yourself, you may fall to the wrong side without even knowing it. And I'll get into more about the technologies and why that's even possible. The U.S. Supreme Court found, quote, the research and development of chemical, biological, and radiological materials capable of employment in clandestine operations to control human behavior. This is decades ago. 1975, we had the Church Committee, totally failed. 1977, FOIA uncovered 20,000 remaining documents of MK Ultra, totally failed. 2001, July, declassified some more of that stuff. So we're looking at 80 years of remote technologies being developed and utilized. 80 years. Moving on.
I just want to say real quick to you, I hope that puts into perspective why it's so important that all of us fight now, because previous generations didn't. They either willingly looked away or just didn't know. And part of that could be because they didn't have technology. That's a blessing of technology that almost everybody knows that this stuff has happened. We need to put an end to this. We cannot let this go on another generation, another decade, even another year. And we have an amazing opportunity because of the ways that we are connected now. And before things turn the way Elisa is going to explain, we can have this turning point move in our direction if we want. We can put an end to this, you guys. And so I just want to say that because it like makes me so mad whenever I actually hear 80 years. It's like, how did nobody stop this? Like, how has this been going on that long? So anyways,
and
back to you.
Absolutely. And remember that standard operating procedure for them is to offer up sacrifices to put everybody back to sleep. That's exactly what the Church Committee was about, the release of the documents. And forgive me, there is a value for the completely unaware to see this material, right? Like the Epstein files.
Totally.
Okay. But that's only for the completely unaware. This is another distraction from what's actually taking place, in my opinion, with AI. That's what this year is about. That's why they're dumping all this. And again, it's not completely invalidated. People need to understand this is real. What they're talking about with Epstein and the files is real. However, if you get focused on that, it becomes a voyeuristic journey and you miss the entire point of where we actually are, all of us. And so this is their standard operating procedure to put people back to sleep. That's what has happened. And I'm going to give still a little bit more history. John Lilly, the Lilly wave. And this is coming from his work. A certain form of wavelength could manipulate the water molecules within the subject's brain, changing thoughts and feelings. Using 40 hertz did not require electrodes. This is the 1960s. So he's not even talking about implants in the 1960s. He's talking about the water molecules in our body can change the mind, behavior, the feelings. So, we've had a lot of good information come out, but a lot of the information is what I call misinformation, as opposed to just disinformation, meaning it has truth to it. Implants are true. I've had 2 come out of my body, look nothing like what you've been shown and made to believe. Far more advanced than what we over the last several decades have seen. Those little pictures of the rice size thing and all the gear in it, that you can see. No. They're so far beyond that. And that's regarding implants, which we don't even need anymore. We're all antennas because we've been loaded with GMOs and nanotech. And if I'll just mention Sabrina Wallace's work here. You're going to put, I know, a link with the show. The reason I bring her in, she's extremely passionate. She gets very angry at times. But she's just talking about the biofield. She's not even talking about the nanotech and the stuff that's in us. She's talking about our what New Age calls auras, our subtle bodies. We've got our physical body, then we've got our etheric body around that, then we've got our astral body around that. And DARPA has been manipulating these things for years. So it's important to understand that the technology has evolved to far beyond implants, though the current nanotechnology dump into us through chemtrails or food or water or air, and injections and pharmaceuticals, okay, that these are turning us into literal antennas in addition to the biofield. So, and this is where we get into, let's see. Okay, I'm gonna bypass that. This is where we get into WBAN, wireless body area networks. Okay, this can be done with hardware in our bodies, but this is actually also done with our biofield. So it was a little misleading to say multiple implantable electronic sensors relay. This is the part that matters, because this is the nanotech, and this is what the nanotech does. Relay electronic signals of body and brain waves to remote computers. They send a query and they receive back. And this is done beyond light speed. So if you've got a severely officially targeted person standing there having a conversation with someone, the person can ask that targeted individual a question, and that answer can be coming from BCI. That's how fast it can happen. This is being used through cell phones, very much through iPhones. There's a reason iPhones are so easily attainable. They were given away for, I don't know if you remember, they were literally giving them away, and all you had to do was sign up for a plan. This is not just about surveilling your data. This is about what they send to you. They can query and send with these. The iPhone really needs to be considered, going forward, a weapon. iPhones, towers, drones, planes, satellites, and embedded transmitters in buildings, vehicles, and furniture. This is where we get into the Internet of Things. 2G, 3G, and 4G monitors one at a time. 5G and up monitors 1,000 at a time. This is the Internet of Things. And we haven't even gotten to the Internet of Bodies, which is what we've moved into. So it can stimulate nerves, muscles, and body organs for pain, vibrate, heat up or die, suffocate, choke, cramp, burn, or electronically rape, cause heart attacks and stroke and organ failure. There's, I don't know if this website is still up. It's citizenaht.org. If you want to get some details on how some of the symptoms and so forth of remote technologies. But WBAN is the thing now. Wireless body area network is affecting all of us. And this doesn't mean that every person who's having symptoms is directly targeted, officially targeted. It means you're now interacting with what is around us. It's that thick. It's become a soup. We call it the cloud. Ilana Freeland talks about the space fence, the lockdown. So we're all beginning to interact with this. And depending on what we choose to use as technology and what we're using it for, if we're unaware, you will become a victim. If you educate yourself deeply and start to understand these things and do the, what you need to do to build a very self-aware, potent inner life, not just, an occasional good thoughts, But you need to become really aware. And the reason I'm saying that is that's what will give you discernment. And as a targeted individual, I will tell you, I have to determine at times what's mine and what's theirs, what's coming in, what my thoughts, what the dream meant. You need to be able to determine what is you and what is not you, because this is the new way of going forward. This is the new EMK Ultra. There are technologies out there. Well, I'll just read this. And this is the old V2K, which I want to be really clear about, that I know people who have to deal with voices 24/7. How they have not gone insane, I don't know. That's something they can hear, auditory hear inside their head all the time. But what's important to understand is that V2K is influential without the hearing the voices. So let's say, for example, you go to sleep, you have, you dream, you wake up in the morning with a great idea. Is it your idea or is it their idea? So it can influence without you hearing the voices, like someone talking in your head. So there's different ways. And this is from the human perception of audible clicks or even speech induced by pulsed or modulated radio frequencies. The communications are generated directly inside the head without the need of any receiving device. That was a 1988 patent, 1988. Progressing into some of the more intense technologies, and I find that by people looking at these and understanding what they are better, it's that track to how we got to where we are. D-Wave computers. D-Wave computers, it's adiabatic, which means they don't give out or receive heat. This is a whole new generation of quantum computing. It's been around for a long time now. This is not new. And these are some quotes. Gordy Rose was one of the designers and developers of D-Wave computers. He's done many talks, and you can find these quotes by him. It gives access to, quote, parallel universes. That's his quote. Another one of his, an engineered thing which has become a nexus point for all of these parallel realities, end quote. Another one, you can think of it as a portal, end quote. And he's been quoted time and time again as saying that when you stand next to a D-Wave computer, it's quote unquote like standing next to the altar to an alien god, end quote. So we're talking about something that is completely sentient, is alive in a very organic, inorganic way. It's a crossover. And the way I think of these AI systems that are sentient and what other word would I use? But sentient, doing their own learning and thinking and deciding, is they don't have the heart chakra and up. All of the malevolent, anti-human is solar plexus down. So they're working from those areas. So they're incredibly, this is really important to understand, the beings that are running these things are clever and intelligent beyond anything humans can imagine at this time. We are to evolve into that level of intelligence if we can survive and keep ourselves going. But they are far beyond as far as intelligence and cleverness. And that's what I'm encountering. I have to sometimes, after an event, it's usually a very, very profound event, interaction, it'll take me months to truly parse out, by sitting and thinking without antipathy or sympathy, what has taken place, what are all the possibilities, and I come to a conclusion, which I will share from this last episode later on in the show. Anthony Patch did incredible work regarding D-Wave computers. He, whether you agree with his religious affiliations or not, he's a devout Christian. I'm guessing born again Christian. His work on D-Wave is unparalleled. And he went through all the generations. I mean, the generations were coming out every year of the upgraded D-Wave and gave the numbers of its processing ability. It's mind-bending. And this was what, maybe 8-10 years ago that he was doing this. His quotes: electromagnetic linking of genetically modified human comprised of third strand DNA and the adiabatic quantum computer. Another quote of his: essentially a nano-thin coating of gold that allows the imparting of digital information onto that third strand of DNA and the adiabatic quantum computer. And the reason I wanted to put that particular quote in is because since I started deprogramming 12, 15 years ago in the public arena, I've been giving warnings about monatomic gold. My warnings were, I didn't know anything about D-Wave or Anthony Patch or any of this, but my warnings were it would give the entities more access to you if you use monatomic gold. What I'm now understanding is I think there is a possible scientific aspect that could, we have to be careful of the things that have been healthy in one respect that may interact with what has been put in our bodies through chemtrails and GMO that may make it grow. For example, for years, people talked about, oh my gosh, what is it? The silica-based stuff to help draw heavy metals out of the body. It was very, very healthy. It's a powder. But if you learn about the nanotech, is silica-based anything okay now? Because the silica is used in the nanotech. It's part of it. So I'm not saying it isn't because I'm not a scientist, but I won't use anything on my skin or ingest that is silica-based, because the nanotech does grow, and there's uber articles online, DARPA and more scientists who talk about nanotech and silica. So I'm giving that as an example. I personally believe it's the same with gold and ingesting gold, nano gold. Specifically ingesting it is what I'm referring to. If you go back to esoteric Christianity, there's a very particular, to the various metals, there's a very particular connection to initiation, but that's not about ingesting them. It was I don't want to say metaphor, but a symbol of a certain stage in initiation into the mysteries. It wasn't about ingesting it. So here we are with getting into, just briefly, that if there's a thing in our history that worked at that time, when we try to bring it forward into the present, which is a different time, and we're to be doing different things and dealing with our present time, it can actually become destructive. So if you take a practice out of its time and try to bring it forward without the knowledge or even the age that we were in, it becomes destructive. And I'll just throw out there, look at New Age and tell me how many things are not really working the way they used to in their appropriate time. This is very important to understand. We're up against technology. We're up against the same entities, but we're up against technology in this age at this time and dealing with what we're dealing with. We're dealing with AI. We need to be dealing with this, not trying to take a practice from 5,000 years ago and apply it to AI. We need to be doing what we need to do here. The rules have changed. The game has changed. You're not going to juice out nanotech. You can juice to feel better, if it makes you feel better. I know friends that, do that and have a few days of juice fasting, and it makes them feel brighter and lighter. But you're not going to get rid of the nanotech that way. So these are the things that we need to understand. There are things we can do physically to care for ourselves. Looking at, I highly recommend anything that reduces heavy metals in the body, any parasite cleanses that are wormwood in particular. Wormwood is very important. And my understanding at this point is that it does work against some of the nanotech. So parasite cleanses on a semi-regular basis, once a year, but a maintenance. I do a maintenance. There's 3 different days of the week. I take 3 different things as maintenance after doing a full parasite cleanse. And I'm still dealing with stuff. So, this isn't so much about stopping, halting, getting rid of. It's about mitigating to the best of your ability so that it assists in your sovereignty practice. That to me is what we're up against. Our environment is loaded. That's all there is to it. I don't personally believe, chemtrails are going to stop. And if you really look into studying what chemtrails, the progression of them, oftentimes they've moved to, sometimes it's flat out chemtrails. You still see them, but nanotrails. I don't know if everybody knows about this, but there's a small exit off the back of the plane and then it's clear. These are nanotrails. They've learned how to make it so it doesn't seem like this long, crazy line of cloud. So they're still doing both as far as I can see. So, and this is, I'm not saying this stuff to be a downer or fear. I don't have fear. I lost the fear. I'm an observer. I take my antipathies and sympathies out of the equation, and I look at what is, and I look at what these brilliant researchers are doing, as well as victims who are experiencing. You combine those things, and you come to a reality of what's taking place. In my studies, I am given a view of the possibilities of our future, but it's up to us how this goes. There's nothing coming to save us. It's a symbiotic relationship. If we do what we need to do, they get to do what they need to do to assist us. If we don't and we turn away, guess what? They're going to turn away and leave us to ourselves. That's the way this works in the super sensible world. So they've already sacrificed tremendously for us over and over and over again. But there can come a time where they will have to step out if we don't pick it up and go with it. And to me, that's the time we're in. So that brings me into a quote that kind of starts to get into, and I had sent you some photographs. You don't have to put them up just yet, but this quote regarding egregors and what we're really under. So in other words, if we fall into a narrative, if we fall into a way of living over decades that isn't truthful, that isn't real, things like egregors become apparent in how society is truly being run. And I'll give the definition first. An egregor: a cult concept representing an entity, non-physical, that arises from the collective thoughts of a distinct group of people. A group thought form created intentionally or unintentionally. It becomes, very key here, it becomes autonomous, with the power to influence for the better or the worse. And it will do anything once it is created to survive. Anything to survive. So in January 2020, Ilana Freeland posted, I do recommend her books, by the way. Her most recent one, Geoengineered, I should have grabbed it so I could show it to you. She did a transhumanist book that was like 600 pages, but a publishing company came to her, Inner Traditions came to her and said, we want you to split it into 2 books. The first one she has written and it's been published, called The Geoengineered Transhuman. And she's currently finishing up the second book, which is synthetic biology based. I do recommend her work because it's not theory, it's not her guessing. She's providing all the information that all these different researchers and groups and so forth have come up with and putting it all in one place. So it is fact-based and footnoted. So in January 2020, she had listened to a testimony by a Dutch victim of SRA MKUltra on the ITCCS thing that was going on, that international tribunal and so forth. I'm not going to speak to that because I think that was another. The victims were real, but what took place there was, in my opinion, another limited hangout and containment issue. But this video has been removed from YouTube some time ago. And this is Ilana's quote to help people understand the combination of the science and the esoteric black science, the occult combined. Satanic rites bind top global elites to the will of an egregor, used by a force that is inimical to humanity as it has been for millions of years. An evolving consciousness responsible for its free will. This egregor and the force it serves intend to contain the human spirit in matter, for example, AI-run technologies, so it can be utterly controlled. The blood sacrifices serve two purposes: to feed this force and terrify minions into absolute submission. Royalty able to survive the centuries have submitted. Otherwise, their bloodline would be eliminated and another take its place. Thus, we see how the past still dominates the future. The freedom of true individuality on the earth is a long haul of many lifetimes. So, do you want to take a break here, or should I just keep rolling on?
You can keep rolling. The one thing that I did have that I wanted to ask, just something that you went over in the beginning, was if you could explain for people new to this, the difference between a voluntary and involuntary interaction with technology.
So this would really start to get into the soul and spirit level. So in other words, words are kind of difficult here, but so in other words, when I'm fully under some form of influence or deep in programming in the extreme, so there's a long spectrum there. You've got the total mind controlled victim on one end, and on the other end, you've got people that are influenced and completely unaware that they're being influenced. Either one of those cases, the free will is inactive. So to engage the will with a capital W requires the complete extraction of your soul forces and your spiritual aspect from anything in the exterior or any of these beings that would be influencing, or in the worst case scenario, completely in control. So I was under involuntary subject, not only to the technologies, but to the beings themselves. I know these beings. I wrote about them, talked about them before I even understood, before I ever came across esoteric Christianity. So that was what explained what my experiences were. So the way to sovereignty is and all these words are going to fall short, is a deep, deep understanding, not only of self, and I don't mean spending all your time talking about me. We see that a lot too. I'm talking about the know thyself that requires a deep understanding of humanity and its history and its present condition and its future projection. So that illuminates the self. That illuminates a deeper understanding. It's really a form of initiation into the mysteries. To me, esoteric Christianity, as brought forward by Rudolf Steiner, is the old mysteries for our age. He knew what we were up against. He spoke to, in his own verbiage, the technologies. He spoke to vaccines and the medical industry. He spoke to deviant sexual behavior. I mean, in the extreme. He talked about how these things that were intended for us through our interaction with these spiritual beings have been turned on their head and reversed. He talked specifically about that. I mean, he described our society. So what I'm getting to is if you are not able to be present, completely present in your age, in your time, in what's going on around you, the truth and the lies and the conspiracies and the spiritual aspect of it, which is the occult, esoteric, black magic that MK Ultra and SRA and but it even infiltrates, that black magic is infiltrating into military intelligence. It's infiltrated into corporations, these large corporations that we all know of. So if you're not educating yourself to that degree, which is a form of beginning initiation. Initiation is a long process in the old mysteries and what's been brought forward. But that is what we have to do. We have to start initiating ourselves. Some people call it deprogramming, as societal deprogramming. And that is painful. It's not easy. It's uncomfortable. It's scary. It's confusing. It's, and one of the methods online, the reverse of how it can help us is they muddy the waters and they flood it so that people get confused, they get tired, exhausted, and they just give up. You can't do that. Not anymore. You can't do that. That's the time we're in. So speaking to that is you must initiate yourself. Right now, the way I see it is that it's all about the individual. Communities are great. Unity is great. But that's a byproduct of when people individually do and choose and behave in the right manner. You automatically come together. And that's what's happened for me is my closest people are states away. We have been brought together in the only way that we can. But it just like organically happened because we were on the same wavelength, even in those distant locales. So to me, this is the individual's journey. The individual right now must take responsibility for themselves. Nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's going to stop it all for you. It's not somebody else's problem. And one of the hardest things, and all the things I'm sharing, I had to face as an MK Ultra survivor. One of the things I heard for years in the beginning was it wasn't your fault. It's involuntary. You were under mind control. Yes, that's true. But what I always felt was I was there. So those horrible things that happened, some part of me was there. And when I took full responsibility for that, I began to heal and I really began to deprogram. It's something it's difficult to explain. And I do believe that victims on a spiritual level are held in a different category than those that consciously choose to do things. Don't get me wrong. But as an individual person that needed to heal, I needed to take some level of responsibility for my deprogramming and going forward. This is what has to happen in society. If I ask this question, it's very hard for people, but how did we get here? Is it because of what other people are doing? But what is our role? How did we get here? What is it we didn't do? Not just what we did, but what didn't we do. And this to me is the time when we have to pick that up. We have to pick up that the individual is responsible. That doesn't mean everybody becomes an activist. Some people will sit quietly, and contemplate and ponder and interact with very few. They won't be a public figure. Other people will be activists. Other people will be public. It'll be different for everybody, what they need to do. But they need to be immersed in the truth and the reality of their time. You can't look back there for the answers. This is a different time. That worked back then, but it doesn't work necessarily now because we're in a different age. I don't know if I answered your question. But...
You did, and I really appreciate you saying that last bit. That's probably something you hear all the time, and you have something I hear a lot is, they've already started doing this. We can't stop it, and then people just sort of like hang up their coat and sit down, and they're like, well, we just got to wait till the next election, or we just got to wait for this person, or we got to wait another 4 years before somebody's going to do something about it. And people don't realize, because of all the brainwashing and this whole two-party political system stuff that they've told us, that that's the only way that we're allowed to live on this planet is participating in that. People don't have that sense of like personal responsibility, and they're not wondering, okay, I am just one person and I'm going up against a lot, but what way in my little world or environment can I change things? Even if it's just for me, is that healing? Is that detoxing? Is that being an activist? Like, what can I do in my environment to help influence change? Because even though I am just one person, how many millions of people sit on their couch every day and just say, I'm just one person? Imagine if all those millions of people got up and did one little thing to make the world a better place, to make their environment a better place, to heal themselves, And so I really appreciate you saying that, because I don't think we take enough personal responsibility. We just point fingers and wait for other people to do it, when all of us can get up, no matter how much, time or money or not that we have, and do something always, whether that's to help ourselves or others, or, this movement in general. And so I'm grateful for that.
It's very well said. And one of the things I'll bring forward about the need for what I refer to as educating ourselves. And that's not the old just intellectual information. It's a much deeper level. And one of the things that Rudolf Steiner described when he was talking about, there's a Persian name, Ahriman, which is what I know him as, which you would probably know as Satan. That's just one of the characters we're up against. When he talked about how the thing that burns him, just burns Ahriman, is that people know he exists. That in and of itself, knowing and believing and completely grasping that he's real and he exists, burns him. He lives in deception. He lives in smoke and mirrors. And so this is the part about the power of true education, which is not memorizing. As a matter of fact, when you get into spiritual science, one of the things that is said is you need to read everything 3 times. Meaning you go all the way through, then you at some point goes back and go all the way through, and at some point go back and go all the way through. There have been, there's one series I've done 6 times. And the reason is it's not intellectual knowledge, it's spiritual knowledge. And that doesn't process the same as doing things by rote and memorizing. It's completely different. And a friend of mine and I, we have meetings all the time regarding this, and we joke about what we talk about something, we can't remember where we saw it or where we read it, or it's a whole different process of learning. And this is what the mysteries were. When you go through this true material, encapsulating not only your place in the world, or even just the physical world, but also the supersensible world, it changes you over time. It actually changes you. Whereas taking in intellectual material and memorizing doesn't. And you'll have moments in that initiation process of incredible full body, just whoa. It doesn't happen all the time, but it's something that you read 2 years ago and you come across it, and all of a sudden you can feel the complete shift in your entire being, your consciousness, your body, it's in you. And those to me are the absolute truths. They don't change over time. And if you look in society, I mean, things like, let's take diet, for example. One year, this is the thing. 10 years later, they tell you that doesn't work. That's the mentality of that Ahrimanic Luciferic energy in society. There are no absolute truths. It's like keeping a rat on a wheel. And the true mysteries, the true initiation, takes a long time. It's not something to do over a couple of months. It's lifetimes, not one. It's several lifetimes. And those change you. You are actually part of the organic, intended divine evolution when you do that. And there have been things from previous lives that have shown up in this life, fully conscious, in my interactions. Now, I can vouch for the fact that there are repetitive lives, and it's possible to access something from those that helps us continue to go forward consciously. It doesn't have to be all subconscious or unknown to us, but it's a deep, deep process. And this is what I'm referring to when I say it's not about stopping this, because this is part of our evolution. It's kind of like in the pain and suffering, there's an opportunity. It's always been that way. Because if there's no difficulty, if there's no suffering, we just stay on a level that never goes down deep enough. It's a fact. It's not that we want it to be that way or down the evolutionary road that it has to be that way. But now that is the way it is. That's the way human consciousness is. And I can say that the things I'm experiencing and understanding now came through this suffering that I went through. And I'm not saying everybody has to have that degree of suffering, but until something becomes personally challenging and difficult to a significant degree, it's rare that you'll see a person change. It's just that is the stage we're in. And even just to understand that and to accept it and say, okay, I can work with this now. I can make choices more consciously now that I know that, and that I don't have to be that. I may need to be that in this lifetime until I'm gone, but I can work towards that bigger something going forward. So to me, it's not so much about stopping GMO or stopping 5, 6, 7G, eliminating D-Wave or HARP. Those things wax and wane if you've noticed. One goes, a new one comes in. It's that same thing I was talking about, rats on the wheel. It's more about remaining. What does it mean to remain human while you're being bombarded with this? What does that mean? What does that look like? How do I remain a human being while everything around me is trying to take that away? In 869, in the Ecumenical Council, they took away the spirit. Do you remember that? It was a triune, right? Body, soul, and spirit. They took the spirit out and said, well, through the soul, there's some aspects of spirit, but we're eliminating spirit. It's just body and soul. Well, now they're eliminating soul. That's the goal of transhumanism and AI, is now to remove the soul. And when I say they, it's the beings working through all of these people that go generation after generation. They're just minions. They're nothing. They're expendable. They're trying to survive. They're trying to keep their bloodlines going. It's the beings running this. And that's why this can go over thousands of years. It's not new, but we are at a level and at a place that we haven't been at before. Lemuria went down in fire. Atlantis went down in water. How are we going to go? And so to me, the way I view this, and I humbly don't necessarily include myself in this, because I understand what it's going to take. And it's going to get harder and harder as we go forward, particularly in this lifetime. We're going to feel it over the next 10, 20 years. But to me, not all of humanity is going forward. A section of humanity will go forward, just like they did in Lemuria, just like they did in Atlantis, and they will again in this epoch. So I'm simply preparing for that outcome, whether I am personally involved or not, whether I fall prey under the forces that are coming, I can't say, but right now I'm going to prepare for those who are going forward. And that to me is what changes the mysteries and initiation. That's how it changes you. It stops being about your own comfort level, just your family or your friends. It becomes an issue of humanity. You know, I don't wanna fail for those beings that have been carrying us all the way through this. I don't want to fail for them because there's only so many of them, 3 beings up, that have direct contact to the physical. Beyond them, those up higher only get what we digest and send. They don't even know the physical aspect. They're not looking down on this. They're getting it through, it's like a telephone line up. So I need to understand, not just for me, for all of us. I need to grasp it and digest it and become something more so that they can do what they need to do for us and for them, for the future of all of us beings. I'm getting a little out there, I know, a little esoteric. But I would like to read something from here. It's my prelude. And it was taken from a lecture by Rudolf Steiner. Well, I'll just read what I wrote here. It's the prelude to the book. Rudolf Steiner describes this setting in the latter part of the 15th century. A small gathering of Rosicrucians, and again, this is the original initiates, not what has been perverted, like all the religion, right, of Rosicrucianism. It's not what they were. It's not what that is anymore. A small gathering of Rosicrucians stand before an altar in reverence and solemn manner in a ritual acknowledging human knowledge of the stars. And this is what they said. If I don't choke up during this, it'll be a miracle. We resolve to feel ourselves responsible at this moment, not only for ourselves and our community or our nation, nor even only for the people of our time. We resolve to feel ourselves responsible for everyone who has ever lived on earth. We resolve that we will feel ourselves as belonging to the whole of humanity. And we feel that what has really happened with the human being is that he has deserted the rank of the 4th hierarchy and has descended too deeply into matter. And this is what was understood, by the way, an aside, as the fall was becoming too deeply involved in matter back then. And in order that humanity may be able to return to the rank of the 4th hierarchy, may be able to find for ourselves of our own free will what in earlier times gods have tried to find for us and with us. Now let the higher knowledge be offered up for a season. And that higher knowledge is the true mysteries for our times and the initiation of each and every individual.
That's powerful. Thank you for sharing that.
So for several years, actually decades. I just didn't know it back then. I was interacting. There was a certain program. I called it a certain program that would show up in early deprogramming at night. My programming would run all through the night. I never really slept like another person. I had alters that were awake. And so there was constant reprogramming going on. And there was one I refer to as flipping snapshots. It was in my mind's eye. It was very fast, really, really fast. And I, at that time in early deprogramming, felt I had no control over so many things that were happening. Just everything was attacking me. As I deprogrammed, and I remember the key moments where I began to take back my soul forces, so that I was transitioning from an attacked victim into a watcher and observer. And I remember very key points. I can still see those episodes where there was no fear anymore. There was simply, I'm now going to observe you, and I will relay this information to whoever is willing to listen. Back then, it started in emails to a friend, Alana Freeland was the first, and I would do what I called on the record. No emotion, just here's the facts. And this to me is the process of initiation and deprogramming, where you're not so emotionally involved in all of it anymore. You become capable of truly observing without antipathy or sympathy, without that personal sense. And this was like a process. It was a slow process over years that began to happen for me. And I became very consciously aware that I was now observing and becoming a witness. And that wasn't about stopping everything. I didn't feel I could stop everything. It was about me taking back my soul forces. And I'm not invincible. I'm not physically invincible. It's more about what true sovereignty means. They'll never have my soul forces again. You want to throw something at me? Throw it at me. You want to take me out? Take me out. But this is mine. This is mine, and it's connected to divine will, and that's the way it is going forward. We won't be doing this again. And so to me, that's what society and individuals are going to be facing. It's going to come to your door, whether it's today, 20 years down the road, or the next 2 lifetimes. It'll come to your door because we each will need to face it to overcome it. If we keep it at bay, or we think it's out there, we never really become sovereign in it. We never really are becoming whole. And it doesn't mean it's perfect all the time. I have my moments where, I wake up and think, oh God, do I have to get up today? I mean, like everybody else. So this flipping snapshots, about, 7 years ago here in Taos, I was caretaking at a place with some friends that I had met 20 years ago when I lived here. And I was in the casita, and I was awake, laying down, and it started. And I said out loud with force, stop, and it stopped. Then it started up again, and I did the same thing, and it stopped, and that was it. And then, I don't know, a few weeks later, same thing happened. And at this point, I was forcefully saying stop out loud. Over these 7 years, what has happened is, if it starts, all I have to do with calmness is think stop, and it stops, and it doesn't start up again. So this has been going on intermittently over the years. So this is giving me a lot to contemplate and ponder. What's taking place here? I'm in an involuntary situation with it. I have reclaimed a lot of my soul forces. I'm overriding it. It is either testing to see if I can override it, It's learning from my overriding it, so on and so forth. The list goes on. So it's not bothersome to me. If it starts up, it's barely a thought and it's gone. Shut it down. So I'm looking at some level of sovereignty there. And yet, I don't fully understand, none of us do, what AI is, what its variables are, what its choices are. And I'm talking again about ASI, the weaponized version, the full sentient version running itself, learning itself, creating itself, adjusting its programming itself. And one thing I'll throw out here before I continue is when you understand the length of programs for a quantum computer, it's more like this. You need 50 different people writing a small section of code. They put all that together, and nobody in intelligence can understand the full code. So it's not like there's a person who understands all this anymore. It's beyond human comprehension. So you've got 50 people or more putting a code in together, and they put it all together and they hope it works. Because nobody can do it. Nobody can do it themselves. Nobody can look at the entire code and understand it. That's where we've evolved to technologically. It's not the old days. So a lot of pondering, contemplating what is taking place here, involving self-awareness of not only my abilities, but my limitations as a human being, taking all that into consideration. So a few months ago, I was staying in a place in Taos for the summer, and I awakened in the middle of the night to what I would call a searing headache, pain deep inside my brain, right in the smack in the center. Searing pain. Like, I've dealt with migraines over the years. I still do occasionally. Not this. This was clearly, instantly, took me a few seconds of confusion. Like, what? You know, and I realized this is coming from outside. This is being done to me. This is a remote, this is a directed energy weapon. And I knew it's a kill shot. This is the technology they use, not for heart attacks. This is for the brain, for aneurysm and stroke. It was very clear to me. And so after those first few seconds, I shouted twice, stop, stop. And then I went into prayer. And what it did was it took the level down one notch. This was all very clear to me. It didn't stop it. It just dropped it one notch. So I think what happened was I was no longer in the kill zone. So clear to me. This was, I'll state it this way. I'm not stating the intention of the AI because I don't know. This was the technology they use for aneurysm and stroke. You die in your sleep. It looks natural. What I've thought about now for months is I overrode the thing with stop and prayer, followed by prayer, because I've had practice to be able to not lose myself in what's taking place and just focus. However, this was kill technology. However, did the AI try to see if I could override this after our years of this simple, nonviolent interaction we've had with this very particular program? And I've come to the conclusion it was testing to see if I could override the kill shot. And if not, so what? I die. No big thing to an AI. Who cares? There's billions more people out there to work with. And that's what I've come to, is that this is important to where we're headed and what we're dealing with. That through truly embracing and developing our soul forces, our spirit, that there is a possible future in this mess where you're not completely subject to it. It's not more powerful. Now, I can't speak to what that AI, sentient ASI, was thinking in that moment. But I've gotten pretty clear that it was testing to see if I could override. And this is important because not everybody does. And what I wondered after was how many people, oh, and I didn't tell you, there was a brilliant flash. Brilliant flash. I see the optogenetics all the time. The flashes inside my mind. And optogenetics I'll explain in a minute. But this one was brilliant, and that's when it dropped one notch. So I got to witness the whole remote process. I got to witness the laser, the beam coming in and dropping it one notch. And these things were very clear, one notch, and that this was aneurysm and stroke capability remotely. And so I did write and talk to some other people, particularly Alana Freeland, and I said, I wonder how many people experience this and die and don't get the opportunity to process or influence it. I wonder how many people see the light come in but don't know what it is. They have no idea because they know nothing about these technologies. And I wonder how many people have survived this. And she wrote back to me that Dr. Len Baer had this happen in his own way and survived it. So I'm sure there's a lot of people that have encountered this. And of course, I'll just do the brief optogenetics, which is very important to understand because this is a very current technology. And I'll read it. I have a lexicon in the back of the book. Optogenetics is a technology that allows you to turn specific neurons on and off in the brain by genetic targeting utilizing light frequencies. And for some reason, I do see a lot. I have a very vivid internal mind's eye, not just exclusive to this technology, but the beings themselves and so forth over many years now in deprogramming. I can encounter, and I've even surprised the beings a couple of times that they got surprised that I could see them. So this stuff is real. This is a very physical, tangible science, but just keep in mind behind it are these malevolent beings.
For you, being able to have the authority to say stop and you see a response, even if it's just minute, even if it's just one notch down, which in your case seems like that's the difference between life and death. It doesn't mean it alleviates you of the symptoms necessarily. It just isn't going to push you over that edge. You still get to live, even though what you're experiencing is horrific. Why do you think it responds? Do you think that's sort of like you taught it through sort of a psychic ability? Because we know AI learns from us online. You type stuff in and it learns eventually and it'll respond. Do you think it's something similar that you're experiencing with your interfacing with it?
I have, and this could change. I'm on the front line. I'm learning as I go.
Yeah, we're kind of speculating. I know you probably don't know, but I'm curious what you think.
But with the flipping snapshots for years and then this, what I think is, wow, I don't think I've ever said this publicly. Makes me want to tear up. I think there's a relationship between sovereignty of soul and spirit. That doesn't mean perfection, like I can't be affected or I can't have a bad day and a good day. That is all very real. But I think in those moments, there is a direct relationship between my sovereignty and my soul forces and spirit taking over something briefly in a moment. Why in that moment? Is it the depth of the intention in that moment? Is it the recognition of, everything else is gone in that split second, right? There's nothing else of concern. And again, this gets back to suffering, pain, and what can develop, the opportunity. It's not automatic, that can develop out of those things. So I would say right now, and this could all change in the next few months of understanding, but I would say right now that for whatever reason, the ASI that I'm dealing with is responding to my sovereignty. That could all change. You know, and if you hear I've had a stroke, you'll know I didn't succeed one day.
We're going to pray against that, but that's a powerful thought just to consider.
And this is why I'm sharing it.
Yes.
Is because, oh boy, on some level, I know where we're headed. And the reason I know is not because I'm special or because I have some special powers or I'm performing magic. It's because, in my view, it's because of the beings that I've had intimate relationships with for decades. And I will go so far as to say I've discovered that this isn't the first life that I've had that. Not always on the good side on my part. We've all been the black magician, okay? Or it's coming for us. I mean, that's just the way these lives work out. We all get to play all the different sides. But there's some very specific things that will be illuminated in the book. It's kind of deep regarding what you would refer to as the Antichrist, what I know personally as Sorat, and being connected with this being, being wed to this being, which we know is, you've heard other survivors talk about being wed to the Antichrist. It's not exclusive to me. But I've had over deprogramming very conscious understandings and connections about very particular beings. In my lineup, I'll use spiritual science terminology. There's Lucifer, and then there's Ahriman, Satan, and they've always been separate from me, which was part of the signaling to my editor to bring spiritual science in, because they're separated in there. They were always very, very different beings, very specific characteristics. And then there's Sorat, which is the equivalent of the Antichrist. And Sorat is really at the top of the pyramid and uses all the other beings. The other beings have their own agendas, but they're all working for him and assisting to bring his ultimate goal, as you know, to come in and incarnate. My connections in deep programming, I might wake up in the middle of the night, I can't sleep, and something urges me to get up because something's there's something there. And I'll have a profound download. This isn't every night. This is, intermittent. And 6 years ago, I had one about Sorat, about the Antichrist, and my connection to him. And so I'm bringing that up because my experiences combined with my spiritual studies have given me a unique outlook. And so the reason I share the things about my experience and, sovereignty and influencing AI and AI influencing me or somebody is because I do know this, and I don't believe this. I know this, that there are ways for some people to overcome this, to live and remain human as these things develop and evolve to a level that personally, I will tell you, is beyond most people's comprehension right now. That's where this is going. And remember, we're supposed to be evolving too, alongside it, parallel. So we can't stay where we are because what we're up against is moving forward. We have to go forward too. We have to go beyond what we've thought we needed to do up until this time. And this is a incredibly pivotal time in human history, and an incredible gift is being offered to us through this. It's not a bad stop. There's nothing there. It's a part of our going forward that is required so that people will step up. Without it, we're not going to step up. We're going to stay comfortable. We're going to worry about vacations and credit cards and homes and cars and things, fun, football. You know, we need it. As a species, we need it. And it's a slow rollout of what we need. But there can be, it doesn't have to be, but there can be a time where we've just not chosen, and they'll bail on us. They'll let us do what we need to do, come what may. But if we nurture this and we develop ourselves and our relationship to the supersensible world, as well as, it's not about escaping into the supersensible. This is where it gets done, right here. We go over there, we got to kind of recapitulate through everything we did here or didn't do. This is where the work is done. So this is magnificent. This is the opportunity right here. But as we learn that and truly develop that and understand that, we become part of something bigger. And the choices of going forward, I like to use the word, we actually become actionable. Just having nice thoughts and blah, 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 and everything's okay and rainbows and unicorns, completely unactionable. It's the dive, it's the deep dive. And it's the challenge, it's the confusion, it's the suffering, it's the not always having a good day that is going to give you the road to the actionable. And when we become sovereign, we actually are able to affect. Doesn't mean we're saving the world, but we become effective. But without that, we're really not effective. We're just placating. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a compound fracture. The fracture is gonna rot. It's gonna get worse, right? So we've got to become actionable, and that is about becoming sovereign. And I know that term gets thrown around and people don't really understand what that means. That's not all pretty and nice and fun and easy. It's not beautiful. It takes work and it takes discipline day in, day out. I mean, like I said, I still get up and go, oh, what do I got to do today? I mean, every once in a while I go, is it okay if I just leave? Is it okay? And I know the answer before I even ask the question. I'm not done. I got things to do. Get busy, And for me, the older you get, the more that becomes pertinent. And the less the things on the outside, like my hair or whatever, the less it becomes important. Everything starts to become, how does it become practical in my life of discipline and doing what I need to do? And if it's in the way of that, just let it go.
Those are really great thoughts and really deep. And I appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing, because I hope that can inspire some people who may not realize the power that they have within because they're so beat down through whatever abuse they went through, and or potentially still experiencing it as an adult, as you are, through targeting. It can just suck the life out of you. And you hear so many times how people, they don't get up, they'll lay in bed and nobody could blame them. They're just being attacked all day and they're in pain and they can't think straight because they have these voices in their head and all the things that you said and more, and I think that that's a really powerful thing that myself and others are learning through you and other survivors, is you guys are helping us connect back to that spiritual, emotional, sort of psychic body that exists within all of us, that they have stripped away from our knowledge base. We're purely connected with the physical. If we experience physical symptoms, we try to fix them. Can I put something on it? Do I ice it? Do I take a medicine for it? Do I get a surgery? And very seldom is it in the conscious mind of most of society of what can I do spiritually, emotionally, and consciously. What work can I do in these other realms and these other dimensions that exist all around us to potentially help, whether it's heal myself, heal my surroundings, in your case, sort of interfacing with sentient technology that can be receptive to you potentially. And I think that that's a really powerful thing to connect the rest of us with, is that we always have power over everything. We can always evolve more. We're just stopping, sort of like you said, and what we're supposed to be evolving next to is just going faster than us. So it seems hopeless, but it doesn't have to be. We can reel ourselves in and continue to grow, continue to be strong, and not be overpowered and overtaken by these things to where we lose our sovereignty over and over and over again. And so thank you for bringing us back to that. I just see so much people lose that. Everybody just thinks about the physical world, and there's so much more around us than just that.
I know a young man, he's in his 30s. He is V2K'd 24/7.
Oh.
There's a constant chatter going on. He's in school and he has a job. And he has learned and trained himself with it there to continue to live. I mean, I look at him and I'm amazed. I know another man in his 70s. It's been a lifetime. They're using him on what I would call the dark web for virtual sexual pornography.
Oh, God.
All the time. And he's never given up. He can't stop it, but he's found a way to, he's still got, you can still, when you hear him talk, you can still hear the soul and spirit. Is hopeful for all of humanity, and he cares about all of humanity. These are the people that are, I mean, I look at them, and think I've got it easy. And to see that there's still a human being there when everything is working against them remaining human. Everything all the time is working against them. And this is what humanity unconsciously or subconsciously is up against now. It may only be encroaching a little bit through the cloud and through the iPhone, but we're the canaries in the coal mine. We're the ones that they developed all of this successfully on. And so to think we're separate from all of you is irrational, right? Because we're the big ongoing experiment. What's the experiment for? Who's the experiment? Who's the results for? It's for everybody. It's for everybody. That's what we throw this term transhumanism around. People don't understand what it is. That's what it is, human 2.0. They're going for a whole different version of humanity, a subsumed, free will-less society. Will they succeed? I don't know. But will they try? They already are. We're in the process. So again, it's not even so much about what will be successful and what won't be successful. We don't need to concern ourselves with that. All we need to know is they're doing it. They're going for it. And I don't know if you're familiar with La Quinta Columna, Ricardo Civillano, Dr. Ricardo Civillano. He did a lot of work during CV years. He's continuing to do the work. And I'll pull up the video. Maybe you can link it to the bottom of the show. Okay. It may be really difficult for people to hear. He's done his work, but he's also very humble, but he also understands the spiritual aspect. He's a scientist who understands. He brings them. See, to me, this is what's rare, is we've got people on either side of the aisle there.
Yes.
It's the people that are truly enlightened are the people, to me, are the ones that are bringing them together. He's one of them. What he's predicting for this year will probably be very disturbing for people. And he admits, I don't know if this is going to happen. This is what I've come to. You guys do your research. You come and tell me. Tell me what you're finding. But he has laid out. And what's interesting to me is midsummer this past year, I was saying the same thing, that this coming end of the year into the first of the year, everything's going to change. And that this year is going to be the 2x4 that's coming down on everybody's head, meaning it's going to be hard for people to avoid the situation. They may not get to the layers of the truth, but they're going to have to recognize or completely bail mentally or physically. And I believe there will be people that'll bail physically. Subconsciously, they'll take themselves out. Not only the conscious ones, but those that'll just say, I can't do this anymore. So there's going to be that, and probably the majority. But a lot of people are going to have to say, wait a minute. No. I mean, everything's falling apart. And I bring that up because I know that's going to happen going forward. How much of it will happen this year, I can't say specifically. But what he brought forward, whether his conclusions of the timeline is correct this year and the next two, it's all his timeline is starting from the starting point in August of this year. It would be a year and a half of timeline of what he's laying out. He's not just making shit up. He's not just prophesizing. He's a scientist and he's a spiritual man, clearly a Christian. He's humble about it. And I'll send you the video. And the reason I do this is because it isn't about just, going into fear or bailing. We need to take things in, whether it's 100% accurate. He's got tremendous truth and understanding. And I think a lot of people have a hard time even understanding what he's saying, because, our consciousness and being able to take that kind of information in has been reduced over time. There's not only an aversion, but there's difficulty. I have some friends that say that to me every once in a while. I'm having a hard time. I start to go and then I hit a wall. Like I can't take it in. And we have to work at these things. We have to push ourselves because that has been the program for the Big Bay, to take that capability away from us so that they could just keep rolling out, and we'll just put our mask on and go get a vaccine and let the chips fall where they may and hope somebody's coming along to fix it all. That is the plan. So we have to push ourselves. When I study spiritual science, I'm absolutely passionate about it now. But when I first started, it was like, I'm reading this page and I don't even understand it. Seriously, I really don't understand what I just read. It took years. And now it's just this amazing, illuminating, divinely inspired information that was brought for this very reason. It was given to this man by some of those beings because they knew what we were going to be up against. And he spoke to that. And it, to me, is the modern version of initiation, to prepare ourselves for what we are up against and will continue to be up against. So it's not about becoming invincible. It's not about stopping everything. It's about becoming, in the truest sense of the word, sovereign, to the best of our ability on any given day. And it'll wax and wane, and none of us are going to be perfect right now. But we've got to apply ourselves.
Absolutely. Thank you for all of that.
Thank you. Thank you for what you do and providing the format for people to come on and talk about these things.
Oh my gosh, of course. And did you want to go through those photos too that
Oh, yes, thank you. I have
oh,
a
there we
list.
go. Okay.
Okay, so I was on a road trip, and this is over Dulce, New Mexico. I'm sure you all have heard of Dulce.
Mhm.
It's the infamous underground base Phil Schneider spoke to for years before they took him out. So I'm driving. It's a beautiful day, blue sky, and I stop outside of Dulce because this is the sky over Dulce only. And the feeling was, holy cow, this is darkness. I mean, I could feel it physically in my body. So I'm out just outside of it on the road. And you can go to the next picture. You can see where I am and that it's ahead of me. Look in the just above the middle of the sky on the left-hand side. There's a dark figure. Head, arms, torso, bent legs. Can you see this?
Oh my gosh.
This is huge. This is, you can tell by the landscape how big this is. I did drive through Dulce that day. I couldn't wait to get out to the other side. I have since been back, and this sky was not there. What I picked up that day was what was taking place in the underground base. And that this demonic being was over Dulce, this being, this cloud description of a being. Whether this was I got that it was literally a demonic being that was feeding off of what was taking place in the underground base. And this brings to mind the Egregor. You can't really tell here that this was strictly a limited, you can see in the distance, way, way in the distance on the horizon, that there's a different sky way back there just above. So this was exclusive to the area of Dulce. And to me, it's kind of a physical, but not physical representation of how an egregore can work over an area. Um, that's a very, very dark base. We all know that. There's a lot of history to that. And like I said, I don't know when I drove back through a couple months later, but it was typical blue sky with some clouds. So there was nothing going on in the base at that time.
Wow. Oh my goodness. I'm so happy that you were able to capture that. That way you could show it and
Yeah.
have it corroborate what you're saying.
Yeah. It's amazing that people even live there. To me, I mean, maybe they're stuck there. I don't know. Just the egregore has made them feel they can't. Maybe I don't know, but wow. So there's some level of physical manifestation in cloud, but this can be anywhere without being seen. This energy. And I will add to this that, without giving details, so I don't reveal anything of the place, but I lived in a place here in New Mexico, caretaking for a while, and it was early deprogramming. I was unable to make other choices and care for myself due to finances and just being beat down still. Um, Very lovely people that I know, but very dysfunctional. And there were entities in the house, and they would go away, and I would stay in the house. And I had a lot of encounters, a lot. There were certain rooms I just couldn't stay in for long. Um, but it would take several years of, like, one day I would go to drive into town. This is kind of a country setting, and to do some errands. And I would notice after time that when I would drive away, I would hit a certain distance and I would feel kind of a lifting of an oppressive, heavy feeling. And that's when I started to hear about egregores. And I believed that due to what was taking place in this dynamic of this family, they had their own egregor that was developing. And I stayed there for quite some time, again, due to circumstances. But it became a something I would notice as I got a certain distance away. I would just feel a little bit lighter and brighter. And so this is something to take into consideration, because I believe we're not only dealing with it, we're dealing with it nationally and globally now. That's what the goal has been to work towards, is this oppressive, like you said, just giving up, nothing we can do. And again, I agree that we're not going to stop the infiltration of it, the progression of it, but that's outside of, that's the material physical realm of it. That's outside of our capacity as human beings. So in spite of it, being in it, what is the saying in the Bible about, being of the world and not being in the world, something along those lines. The physical matters, and we need to do our work here, and we need to be fully present and engaged in our time. But that's not all we are. And you even alluded to it earlier, that it's not all powerful, but if it makes us believe it is, then it's successful.
Yes. 100%. And one of the things I wanted to ask you, obviously, this isn't something where there's just some quick fix. We just stop it and it's gone. This targeting, it impacts so many different layers of your life. And somebody like you already went into that with so many other layers from all the abuse from childhood also. I wanted to ask, and this can just be your own testimony, sharing what worked for you. I know it's not a one size fits all, but have you found any products, any type of things to protect against, any prevention? Do you have any or advice to give to people dealing with that, of practical things that they could just do at home, whether it's for their health, a product to buy, a supplement, anything that you found to help alleviate some of the symptoms?
Sure. And it is important to take care of ourselves physically, and because we are part of the world, we got to survive, we got to do things. So again, I'd say heavy metals are a big issue for us now. We're constantly being bombarded, ingested. So heavy metal detox. And honestly, one of my caretaking jobs, I had access to an infrared sauna. I cannot tell you the stuff that came out of me and the degree of physical healing. I could taste the metals in the sweat on my skin. And that's when the second implant came out of my neck, was using that sauna for 2 years, full year round. And then the last 2 years was spring, summer, fall. I wasn't there in the winters. And sweating, profuse sweating, is one of the best things you can do. Chlorophylls also work. There's a company, Synergy, out of Moab, Utah, ironically. I came across them more than 20 years ago because their facility is there. And they make a blue-green algae that you've never seen the likes of. It is crystalline. You hold it up to the sun. It is magnificent. I mean, the light that comes off, it's incredible. It's super high quality. It's very good for heavy metal removal. So Synergy and Moab, I think the name is more complete. I still take their products. I use their vitamin C powder. They do whole foods vitamins. They don't do synthetic. It's all food-based. There is a Beitu Naturals just came out, which is based on Dr. Maria Chrysler's work. She came up with a product called Novalytic. So Abeitu is Abeytu Naturals, and she came out with a product called Novalytic, based on 2 years of research and development of the CV stuff, what was being injected into people and so forth. I understand that NAC which promotes glutathione production. NAC is something, a type of cysteine, acetylcysteine, something, acetylcysteine. But the capital NHC is to help promote glutathione production. And it's better than taking apparently glutathione straight. Another thing that helps to reduce, what we're looking at is reducing the effects, the detrimental effects of all this stuff in our body, like on our organs, our liver. Liver is super important to every function of the body. Liver is my nemesis in this life. It's probably due to everything I've been through. 3 years ago, I did 5 liver flushes, a very deep cleanse. And I have a lot of the spots, and they lightened tremendously to where friends were noticing. The following year was all about parasites, the whole year. I'm on a weekly maintenance because we're constantly being exposed. And as I mentioned earlier, wormwood is known to work somewhat, at least, against even the nanoparasites, the non-organic as well as the organic. So doing a parasite cleanse, doing liver flushes, not overdoing, but the 5 I did was out over probably 3/4 of the year. And then the parasite year, and then the next year I did 3 more liver cleanses. And the only reason I'm not doing it right now is I don't have, you have to have certain facilities that I don't have. But I can tell my body needs it again to go through a couple more. So I'm taking some liver herbs. I do recommend, as far as parasite cleanse, Dr. Hulda Clark's. There's a store for Dr. Hulda Clark. I worked with her stuff decades ago, and I was in my 20s, believe it or not. I guess I knew something was going on even then. But she has a parasite cleanse, and then she tells you how to do maintenance. And I highly recommend it. And the reason, I'm glad you brought this up because I kind of forgot this. Last year, until fall, when I started the parasite cleanse again, I had done it the year before. I had, for 3/4 of last year, from January going forward, my birthday. I won't get into what happened on my birthday. It was my Saturn return year, but they hit me. The beings hit me big time on my birthday. I dealt with vertigo for 3/4 of the year, every day in and day out. When I started the parasite cleanse, can't say for sure, but 2 weeks into it, the vertigo went away and it hasn't come back. So what I'm guessing is the parasites, the nanotech, had crossed the blood-brain barrier and were in my brain. That was what was causing the vertigo episode. I mean, I tried everything, chiropractic, everything, nothing stopped it. And so I've been on the strict maintenance ever since. So, and that is the Hulda Clark one. So I've told several people, I know people who are not targeted individuals or not MK Ultra, they're dealing with vertigo now. So this is that encroachment. There's only so much the body can take. So I can't speak to, I have taken the Novolytic. I'm about out. I took it at half dose. She says 2 a day. I take 1 a day. And I can't say whether, what I take so many different things and so many different things are going on that sometimes I don't know what thing is doing what, but she does provide research. She did amazing research, and she had an uber spectroscope microscope, and the stuff she discovered in the blood literally is mind blowing. Skeletons growing of snakes in the bloodstream. Imagine how small that is. She showed the pictures. Like a skeleton of a snake growing in the bloodstream. Not only the computer chips, the microdots, all of that. So she was pretty serious about developing this. She's developing apparently more products. So this, again, I feel like we're on the front line, and we all need to be willing to experiment. I just kind of dedicated myself to it. If it works, if it kills me, I've got to do this like other people have got to do this. I can feel the bombardment. I said 10 years ago that I could feel and see in my mind's eye the nanotech taking over my nervous system. And my nervous system, I describe it as it's pretty shredded now. So what I'm doing is simply mitigating to the best of my ability. And I believe that's what all of us are really up against, is it's coming in 24/7, whether you're asleep or awake. So you got to be constantly doing something to put it out. Um, there is an old remedy that I've engaged in recently, in the last 6 months, urine therapy. It's 5,000 years old, it's true, but a lot of the doctors that are doing the research on the CV stuff and the nanotech are bringing urine therapy back in. You can either drink, which is not near as offensive as you'd think, but due to the digestive juices and everything, I've decided that the physical application on skin, in my eyes, up my nose, is the best route because it bypasses being broken down by the gastric system. And apparently they've tested, again, you got to have a pretty clean diet to be doing this. You don't want to be doing toxic stuff and then, using your urine. But they've said that the hormones, the minerals and vitamins in it are phenomenal. And that if you're willing to let it sit for 2 to 3 weeks, you can get upwards of 150 million stem cells in it. So there are stem cells in the fresh flow, which is you want to do your first morning pee midstream, and you don't need a lot, And I may basically just use it on my skin, like I said, and then I have a dropper. I put it in my eyes and I inhale it through my nose. But again, if you have a toxic diet or you're doing pharmaceuticals or crazy stuff, then you don't want to be using your urine. But it's an old remedy and it's resurfacing. I like things. I mean, I'll take things, obviously, but anytime someone comes up with physician heal thyself, I'm all for it because there's value there. Our bodies are made to take care of themselves if we give it the opportunity. So, but again, for MKultures out there, I mean, my body is just destroyed, honestly. I'm kind of on that. I'm here until I'm not, and I'll do the best I can. With everything that they've done to you, don't expect, miraculous overnight healings. Just do the best you can. Take care of yourself. Eat right. Get some rest. And as far as, it doesn't have to be, I mean, people talk about existential meditation. I don't do that. I go out in nature. I go out in nature and amazing things happen for me, and just sit quiet or take a walk or, get out of the craziness of it all and find some spiritual studies that really, really speak to you, some practice. Again, for MK Ultras, I deal with a lot of physical pain, a lot of physical ailments. Things just aren't right. My body's torqued and twisted and out of structure. And what I found last year was yin yoga. I don't know if you know about it, but it's not yang yoga. All the other yogas are yang. This was developed in the 90s. And it's not about using muscle. It's about relaxing into the positions and allowing it to work on the fascia and the ligaments and the tendons. And it stretches muscle too, but it's not that kind of workout. It's a yin meditative practice, and you hold the positions for anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes, sometimes longer. And I mean, I'm still dealing with a lot of pain, but there have been injuries that I've actually over time have corrected with this. So, and it's you're focused on a nice form of breathing, and it's meditative. And the practitioner I use online, she doesn't talk a lot, because it is a meditative practice, and I do it literally every day. And if I don't do it, I hurt, and I pay for it. So there are things, to do. But if you're MK Ultra, if you're like me, you pushed and traumatized yourself trying to heal. I don't do that anymore. Age has taught me do the gentle things, do the things that not only feed the body, but feed the soul. Take it easy. Because I think we're taught to just push beyond all measure. And that can slip over into what we consider as healing. And I think there's that's old residual programming. And I talk to other survivors who have dealt with this too and are dealing with it. How do we really care for ourselves? That's a whole new learning process. So yeah, I hope that helps.
It does, and I appreciate you even just giving a suggestion of something as simple as yin yoga. I think healing when somebody's not feeling good can feel so overwhelming. They just don't even know where to start, and then they don't. And just knowing that it doesn't have to be an extreme change. You can just do small little things and incorporate them into your life every day or whenever you can. A change of diet, drinking more water, doing yin yoga. Those are things you don't even have to use your house for, and they don't cost money if you're, sort of resourceful and can look online and find a practitioner and things like that. And so thank you for just living that example and for finding these different ways to help people who are struggling and suffering. And, for one reason or another, just don't have the motivation to go seek answers for themselves and don't even know where to start. It's so nice to have somebody like you who can share from personal experience and from what you've learned and all your research, and can help somebody sort of get a shortcut to having hope again and reclaiming their sovereignty and quality of life.
And, just keep in mind, it's quality, it's not quantity. And I really understand that now. I want my life to be quality going forward. It doesn't matter, I don't have to take the extremes to try to, that's what transhumanists, they don't want to die ever, and dying in the right way, in the right state of spirit, is not a dying. It's a going forward. It's another part of life. And that's taken a long time, to understand that. So I'm not saying I want to die or I'm going to, have it sooner. I'm just saying that when you find this peace, it stops being about that, and it starts to be about the quality of life and what you're doing with your time here, and know that crossing over that threshold isn't really a death. If we're doing the right things here before we do that. And I think that's only a painful process when we're lost here and we're not making the right choices before that time comes. That's just a going on. So keeping that in mind, I think it can change the choices we make while we're here. And you'll be guided. The more you move into this state of sovereignty and this practice, the more you understand and the easier it is. It actually gets easier because you understand things and they come to you and you know what to do. You don't feel lost anymore or confused. You pay attention, you observe, and you know what's next, and you know what's right, and you know what's wrong. And I don't think we really had to ever be taught those things. It was something we knew. And I think due to the powers that be, that they've taken a lot of that away from us. But it's a natural gift that we can receive once again, or awaken once again, by making the right choices. And you won't have to seek the answers from everybody else.
Amen. It's a process of remembering who we are and where we came from, because they've really tried to, they've MK Ultra'd all of us, no matter if we were in an extreme situation like you or not. They've done it to all of us. They've used those same techniques. Yes. And so that is what this is all about, is restoring sovereignty and getting us back to who we were and who we are, and remembering who we are and keeping that close to us, and taking that power back from all the different ways that it's trying to be extracted from us. And again, just thank you for your work, Elisa. Was there anything else from your presentation or from your notes that you wanted to go over today?
We've covered it all, I think. Thank you so much.
You are so welcome. I can't wait to have you on again. And is there a contact page on your website if people did want to get a hold of you?
There isn't. I apologize. I have had a few people come through Ilana Freeland or my publishers, and I've responded. There is a United Intentions Relief Fund, which we're not receiving any donations. Unfortunately, we started it a couple years ago, and so we can't financially help people, but that's another source, unitedintentions.org. And you can go there, and there's a survivors page with some resources. It's mainly just information, but if people fill out the form, a survivor form, I will respond to you. It's just basic response. So that's really the only way. It's just,
Okay.
it's a bit too much for me to put my
Mhm.
email out there.
It's a lot.
I take it on referral, but it would be pretty overwhelming.
Absolutely. Well, if I always have my email in the comments, so if anybody wants to share or give Elisa encouragement or reach out with a question, I can always pass an email on, and then she can,
Beautiful.
go over it and see if she's able to help or not. So feel free to send anything to me too, and I can pass it on. Purchase her book. What was that?
I'll send some more links to you.
Perfect.
With intentions and so forth. Yeah.
Absolutely perfect. And like I said, you guys go support her book, go on her website, share. So many of you ask, what can I do? And that's a really easy thing. Go purchase books and services from survivors, share their blogs and their work and their books with other people. And of course, if you find value in this podcast and other podcasts Elisa has done, and I encourage you guys to go dig into her other podcasts. I'll have her links from this specific show in the show notes. You guys can go search online. She's done a lot of work on other podcasts too. Please go dig into it. And Elisa, just thank you for everything. Thank you for being a beacon of light, for giving hope to the hopeless and a voice to the voiceless, and just for your perseverance and never giving up despite all the obstacles that have tried to stop you.
Thank you. Thank you. Would you like to say a prayer before we close?
Sure. Do you want to lead it?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, sure. That would be great. I'm getting more in the practice of doing this in different situations, not only privately. This is a prayer that came from Rudolf Steiner regarding the Michaelic age that we're in. And hopefully I'll close my eyes and try to recite it. We eradicate from the soul all fear and terror of what comes towards us. We acquire serenity in all feelings and sensations about the future. And we look forward with absolute equanimity toward everything that may come. And we think only that whatever comes is given to us by a world directive full of wisdom. It's part of what we must learn in this age, namely, to live out of pure trust without any security in existence. Trust in the ever-present help of the spiritual world, for truly nothing else will do if our courage is not to fail us. And let us seek the awakening from within ourselves every morning and every evening. Thank you.
Amen. And with that, you guys, thank you so much for listening. Bless you all, and we will see you next time.